Good afternoon, all, and welcome to My Deeper Life. And my name is Larry Williams, and I'm going to, if you didn't catch the service this morning, I was talking a little bit about self-limiting beliefs, and we were talking about a lot of things that tend to hold us back. However, this being a session where we're not thinking about holding back, I want to talk a little bit about the positive side of it as well. And as I was mentioning over the past week, that I have discussions with everybody in my family, and all of it was surrounding this whole thing about how we're thinking, goal setting. And I was very encouraged because my son, and whenever you see it actually impacting your kids is always a nice thing. My son Maxwell, he actually spoke to me about setting goals, and he ended up getting a notebook because he told me last night, Dad, I picked up my notebook and I'm going to put it by my bed so I can be able to jot down all my goals and dreams. And he said, he gave me a compliment. He said, because, you are an example to us because we see you going through this all the time, and we're really blessed. So that made me feel good. And this came about because Maxwell lately, he has his license, and my wife and I have been giving him the car to go to work. He works over by Sunrise Highway, and he feels so good when he comes out of work, jumps in the car and gets home. And yesterday I surprised him. I said, Max, you going to work? He said, yeah, I got to work from 1 to 8. And it was about almost 11-ish, 11, a quarter after 11. I said, so what time you leaving? He said, I got to leave about 11:30. I said, how about if I give you the car? It's just going to be sitting in the driveway. And he said, well, I'm going to just be at work. I said, might as well have it sit at work than at the driveway. And so he was able to leave out at 12:30. And he actually drove Madison to the eye doctor. And I was saying, doesn't that feel weird to see your brother over there? And he was actually saying it was a little strange for Madison to be sitting there and him to be sitting behind the wheel. And I bring that up to say because, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying that because he's successful, he actually took that test 3 times. And the first time he took the test, he had failed. I think his grandmother was teaching him to drive, and he actually failed the first time he took the test. And it took him a little while to reschedule. And then he actually, on his own, went to a driving school and was taking, I didn't even know he was taking driving lessons. And then he went and he got up early in the morning. He gets up like 6 o'clock in the morning. He went to take the test a second time. And the second time didn't work out the way he wanted to, but he didn't take that long. The same day he rescheduled that, and then he went back and worked on it. And then the third time he sent out the text and told us everybody he passed, and he was all excited. And now what he's looking at, and we were kind of sharing, is the fact that how good he feels about driving now. He's starting to get his comfort level and everything. So all the pain and all the stuff he went through to get there is pale in comparison to him being able to jump in the car and be able to drive home. And I say that to say that's what we need to focus on when we set goals, because goals, as I mentioned earlier, being a person who sets goals, you're literally putting yourself in a position to stretch yourself, to do things you've never done before, to get where you need to go. Because if you had everything you needed, you'd be where you want to be. So what do we focus on? And it reminds me of that verse of scripture that says, Yeshua, he said that he endured the pain and suffering of the cross because of glory that was set before him. He saw us, and he knew because he had to go through this, he said, let this cup pass from me, but nevertheless, not my will, thy will be done. And that's the same kind of focus and intensity we need to have when we're pursuing our goals. We're not looking at the circumstances and the situation, but we're looking at what the end result is, and that keeps us motivated. And then I remember when we were standing for our house, and we actually bought the house in, I think it was 2011 in December, and then we had a tenant from the previous owner that wasn't leaving. And I'm paying mortgage, paying rent, utilities, and all this from January to August. And it was so easy to just, I had to hold Val back a couple times because she was not too pleased with this young lady. And even my mother was even more upset than me. She wanted to come up there and yell at us, Ma, relax, we'll get it. And don't you know, once we got the house, the years that we spent, a lot of you came out, we cooked out and everything, and we forgot all about that lady. I mean, we never even thought. As a matter of fact, it was a blessing because we were able to even bless her. We talked to her, and she thought that we were kind of out to get her, and we thought that she was doing this. And, both of us, like I said, we had this concept. It wasn't even true, but we're acting as if it was true because of what we believed in our head. So we were led to bless her with some money. She moved on. But when we had the house and we were enjoying it, we were fixing it up and everything, all that 8 months that we went through, we never even thought about it again. And what I'm trying to encourage you is when you get the right mindset, then you don't mind the work, that you have to go through, because you know how good it's going to be when you get there. So what I want to do is just take a moment. We only have a few people, so like we said, intimate, but we might be brief. But I wanted to just give you a couple mindsets of individuals who actually had the right mindset, unlike the nation of Israel we talked about this morning. So the first mindset I want to talk about is David, and that came from 1 Samuel 17. I'm going to start at verse 20. It says, one day Jesse said to David, take this basket of roast grain and these 10 loaves of bread and carry them quickly to your brothers, and give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captains. See how your brothers are getting along, and bring back a report on how they are doing. And David's brothers were with Saul and the Israelite army in the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. So David left the sheep with another shepherd and set out early the next morning with the gifts as Jesse had directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army was leaving for the battlefield with shouts and battle cries. Soon the Israelites and the Philistine forces stood facing each other, army against army. David left this thing with the keeper of supplies, and hurried out to the ranks to greet his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. Then David heard him shouting his usual taunts of the army of Israel. As soon as the Israelites' army saw him, they began to run away in fright. Have you seen the giant? The men asked. How come he comes out each day to defile Israel? The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who will kill him. He will give that man one of his daughters and a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempt from paying taxes. David asked the soldiers standing nearby, what will a man get for killing this Philistine? Now already you see his mindset is not fear, doubt, and unbelief. His mindset is what? I'm going to get what? What? Everybody else is running away saying, hey, it's a giant. He's taunting us. But this is what I'm saying. Him in the field, not being around negative people, he got things like, and we'll see in a moment, he was saved from a lion, from a bear. He had a relationship with Yahweh. He practiced the sling. So he was working on his gifts, his talents and ability, and he trusted Yahweh. So his response to something that he's never done before actually is much different than everybody else. So then we go on to say, in verse 28, but when David's oldest brother, Elbiah, heard David talking to the men, he was angry. He said, what are you doing around here anyway? He demanded. And you see the negative attitude. What about those few sheep that you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. And then, what have I done now? David replied. And it sounds like they always have this going back and forth, because David's just not scared of anything, right? And it says, what have I done now? David replied. I was only asking a question. Doesn't that sound like a little brother? What? I was only asking a question. And he walked over to some others and asked them, and asked the same thing and received the same answer. David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. And it says right here in 32, don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. Imagine this little kid. He's a little kid. He had all these warriors. And don't worry about this guy, this Philistine. And then David told Saul, I'll go fight him. And Saul said, don't be ridiculous. Saul replied, there's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy. And he's been a man of war since his youth. So you see, Saul had a whole totally different view of David than David had of himself. David had the view of Yahweh, because it says man looks at the outward appearance, but Yahweh judges your heart. So when we see people, we can't judge from the exterior. When we see circumstances, situations, we can't judge by what we see. We have to trust that his word is going to do what his word said it's going to do. Amen. But David persisted. I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goat, he said. When a lion or a bear came to steal a lamb from the flock, I'd go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns to me, I catch it in his jaws and club it to death. I have done this to both the lion and the bear, and I will do this to this pagan Philistine. 2, for he has defiled the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from the Philistine. So this is what I'm saying, that as we look at what we do with My Deeper Life, and we talk about the tools, and we're talking about speaking in tongues, 15 minutes every single day. We're talking about reading in rhythm. We're talking about reading Philippians, I think it's Ephesians 1, chapter 1 and 3, and asking for wisdom and revelation. These are things that we're doing to habitually begin to affect our thinking. So when we find ourselves in situations, our immediate response is exactly what David's response is. I'm not looking at what I can see. I know what God has done in my life. I know what he can do for me, and I trust him. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that leap. Now, one thing I will say is somebody said that courage isn't the lack of fear, but it's that you move in the face of fear. You're not going to allow fear to hold you back. So will you sometimes question or feel a little insecure about what you're doing? Yeah, you might. But when you trust Yahweh, you're going to move anyway. And that gets back to that saying that in the Bible, he said, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. And you got to borrow that God kind of faith. Because if we could do it on our own, we wouldn't need a Savior. And we can't. So we have to acknowledge that. But then we also have to acknowledge that in him, we can do all things. Amen? And now the next mindset is a little boy called Jesus, right? And that was back in Luke chapter 2, starting at verse 41. This is when he was a boy, only 12 years old. And it says, starting at 41, every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, then they went up according to the customs of the feast. When those days were over and they were returning home, the boy Jesus remained behind in Jerusalem. His parents were unaware that he had stayed, assuming that he was with the company. Assuming that he was with their company. They traveled for a day before they began to look for him among his relatives and friends. When they could not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. Finally, after 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting amongst the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. And when they heard him, they were astonished at his understanding and his answers. It says, when his parents saw him, they were astonished. Child, why are you doing this to us? His mother asked. Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. And that anxiously searching for you is kind of in worry. They're worried about him. They're searching for him. And what was his response? Why are you looking for me? He asked. Do you know that I have to be about my father? I have to be in my father's house. But they did not understand the statement that he made to them. And so they went on back home. But what I saw there is the fact that he understood what his mission was. He wasn't afraid. He was in his father's house. He knew what his mission was. He wasn't worried. He was taking care of business. And again, afterwards said he grew in stature and favor with God and men. Why? Because he developed himself, because he was working on that relationship. He was working on that trust. He was working on that understanding. And that's why when he became 30 years old and launched his ministry, he knew exactly what his mission was. He came here to die, and he wasn't afraid of that. Even when Peter tried to say, oh, no, Lord, suffer it not to be. Of course he didn't want it, because he said, if this cup could pass from me, but nevertheless, thy will be done. And that's how convicted he was, because he spent his time, and you saw since 12 years old, people were astonished at where he was at 12 years old, which means he practiced, he got in the Word, he read the Word. And these are the same things that Pastor Dan is trying to create an environment for us to have these principles, to have things that we continuously use as tools to develop ourselves spiritually. All right? Now, what I want to do, the last person I want to look at is, and I want to show you that there actually are two different ways that you go back and forth. And this is in 1 Kings, because I was reading, this is in our reading, and this was about Elisha. And I thought that this was very interesting. So if you go to 1 Kings chapter 19, and then you start at verse 1. Now remember, this was after Elisha had just finished saying, bring all the prophets of Baal around and let them go ahead and see if they can give a sacrifice to their God. And if they do it, then fine, we'll fine, he's the God. But he's just like, why don't you guys scream a little louder? Is your God deaf? Is he on the toilet or something like that? So they're yelling and screaming all day. And then he said, okay, bring the sacrifice, fill the trough up with water, douse it on that. And he just finished calling fire down. The prophets of Baal were killed. After all that, starting at verse 19, it says, when Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way that he had killed the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: may the God strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you, just as you have killed them. Elisha was what? Afraid. Now you just had this mighty miracle and this woman telling you she's going to kill you and you're afraid. And so what did he do? It says, and he fled for his life. He went to Belshazzar, a town in Judah, and left his servant there. And it says, then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. So do we get afraid, or do we act in the wrong way? Yeah, we might have just had a miracle and someone comes and tells us something stupid and we get afraid. My point being is it happens, all right? But now let's look at him again in 2 Kings, because I chuckled when I saw this. So in 2 Kings, and this is starting in verse 1. Let me see, where am I? 2 Kings 1:15. So 2 Kings 1, verse 15. Now, this right here was when, let me just make sure it's the right one. Okay, yeah. This is when Elisha, they were sending, the king got upset with him, so he was sending a guard, a captain with 50 men to bring him back, right? So let me just actually go back a little further. It says, okay, yeah. So we're going to be starting verse 9. So the king is upset. Then he sent an army captain with 50 soldiers to arrest Elisha. And they found him sitting on top of a hill. The captain said to him, man of God, the king has commanded you to come down with us. But Elijah replied to the captain, if I'm a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and destroy you and the 50 men. Then fire came down and destroyed from heaven and destroyed and killed them all. So the king was upset, and he sent another captain with 50 men. The captain said to him, man of God, the king has commanded that you come down at once. And Elijah replied, if I'm a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and destroy you and your 50 men. And again, fire of God fell from the heavens and killed them all. Now, this is a smart guy. It says, one more time, the king sent another captain with 50 men, but this time the captain went up to the hill and didn't tell him to come down, and fell to his knees before Elijah, and he pleaded with him, O man of God, please spare my life and the lives of these your 50 servants. So see how the fire from heaven came down and destroyed the first two groups, but now please spare my life. Then the angel of the Lord said to Elijah, go with him and don't be afraid. So Elijah got up and went with him. And again, this is that mindset, because he trusted God. And he said, if I was going to call fire down, and fire came down. This was the same guy who just a moment ago ran from Jezebel, but now he's walking in that right mindset. And what did Yahweh encourage him? Yeah, go with him. Don't be afraid, because I got your back. And see, that's how when we move forward, we want, and that's why listening to the voice of Yahweh is so important, because there's sometimes he's going to tell you not to go someplace. But when you listen to that voice, he tells you to go, and you have that confidence. So I just wanted to also just talk about that mindset as well, to kind of counter the mindset that we were talking about earlier today. And what I wanted to do is just take a few moments to just maybe open it up and give everybody an opportunity to come up. And what I'd like to kind of to hear is you share about times maybe that you were stretched and you might have thought you couldn't do it, but then all of a sudden you surprise yourself and you were able to come through that. Or maybe how you use the My Deeper Life tools to change your way of thinking. So what used to kind of hold you back, maybe you have a different approach today because you've been working the tools in your life. Or just if you had to, let me see, and what you did in order to confront those self-limiting beliefs. So that's kind of the line that I want to go on. But if there's something else that you'd like to share, your goals or something else, then I'd like to also hear from that. But whatever you say, I think it really is going to encourage other people. Amen? So Kim is going to come up and speak with us.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Oops. Okay, Larry, I wanted to tell you that your message today was really encouraging too, because when he was talking about how you would say that you don't know how to do something before you even try to do it. And when he was talking about the piano, it made me think about when I was trying to, and this was many years ago, when I was trying to quit smoking. And a lot of times, some of your bad habits keep you from seeing talents that you have inside of you. And so when I had quit smoking, I needed something to do with my hands. And a friend of mine had bought a guitar, and it's like, oh, I love the guitar. I think I'll buy one also. And I started reading, like teaching myself to read music and everything. And then all of a sudden, music really started coming out of the guitar, because I was driving everyone crazy, calling them and playing the guitar over the telephone and everything's like, look, I'm really playing a song right here. But something else that you said today that was really encouraging, because one of the things that I want to do is become a certified bookkeeper, because I do bookkeeping, but I want to get certified so I can make sure I know everything that I need to know and everything. But one of there is a fear in me that I realize, because most bookkeepers use QuickBooks or something like that, so it's more computerized, and it's better to learn bookkeeping by paper and everything, because the computer hides a lot of the steps and everything, and you need to know why is this happening like that. And to get certified, they do teach you how, so you can know all the backups, things that's going on behind the scene too. And it's like, him, you have a fear, and I mean, listening to you today, it's like I have to get over that fear, because every time I open the books and everything, it's like I have no idea what this is saying right here. It's like it seemed like I just can't get it. And it's like, him, you can't get it because you have that fear, and you telling you that it's hard or something like that. So I'm going to I'm encouraged to open those books and really look at it, because each month when I get the newsletter from this bookkeeping organization that I belong to and everything, so I could learn new updates and everything, I see a list of everyone that was certified around the country and everything, and that's encouraging to see that too. But it wasn't encouraging enough to push me. But now that I'm looking at, it's like, him, you're saying you can't do something, but are you really trying hard enough right now? Yeah, so I just wanted to share that. Yeah. Okay, so who else wants to come up? I'm sorry, Larry, you want to come up and... Okay. Let's move it on. No, Did anyone else want to get up? Okay, come on, Leroy.
Hello? Yeah, I wanted to share with you, I also failed a test 3 times, where a driving test. But back in them days, they told you to get in the car. You couldn't go on the passenger. You had to come on the passenger side. No, you had to go on the passenger side, then come over, because they didn't have no middle part in there. So I got on the driver's side, so I automatically failed. The second time I went there, my window was so dirty. The guy said, "Look, we can't do this, But the third time I went there, I drove the car. He told me to do the broken U-turn. I did the broken U-turn. That was all right. But I would talk about the car now. But this is what I want to share you. People are always looking at you. You really don't know if they're looking at you or not. Last week, I was doing the restrooms, in my job, and I found a telephone with a cell phone. So I picked up. I took it down to the hospital police, to turn it in. And on my way down there, one of the guys from housekeeping, he told me, he said, "What going on, Leroy?" I said, "I found their phone, I'm taking it to the hospital police." "Man, you should keep that phone, man. It's a good phone right there." I said, no. I don't even know how to work my phone now yet. I'm still working on that, So I took it to the hospital police, So 2 days later, my boss came down there with this guy, big guy, about the same size Pastor Dan. I mean, he was big, So he said, "Your name Leroy?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's Leroy right there." He said, so the boss said, "You found his phone?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You kept the phone?" So I'm looking at my boss. I said, no, I turned the phone in. He said, yes, you did. You kept that man's phone. I said, no. The guy said, no, he just joking with you, you know. He said, thank you very much for finding my phone. I thought I'd never get it back, you know. So he said, here go a little envelope for you. I said to myself, probably $10, $5. I put it in my back pocket, you know. So later on, I opened up $100 the guy gave me. So the boss said, you know something? He said, we still got, you know, Leroy, he different, you know. He one of the good guys around here, you know. That's my point right there. You know, people are always looking at you. Yeah. Anybody else? Michelle.
Hi, it's me, Michelle. And I want to talk about, you know, I just came back from taking a little small vacay of the shore. And the thing is, you have to take time for yourself, you know, in order to be refreshed. And it already started as I was going there. I found out, you know, I had to pay $15 round trip, you know, because I'm 62 years old. So, you know, you can't do that here with the MTA, but in New Jersey Transit, you can, you know. And altogether, you know, $320 for 4 days and 5 nights. So, you know, that was good. I had a really good time. Sometimes you have to take time to slow down to see what Yahweh has made, or the ocean, the waves, and the shore, and the ebb and the tide. You know, we all worry about this thing or that, rushing around, but you have to take time to refresh yourself and restore yourself. And, you know, I thank him for that. You know, I thank him because as I was coming back home to New York, you know, I'm saying, oh my goodness, it's so slow out there, it's nice. And here I come back into the rush, into the commute and stuff like that. And then you find yourself saying words out your mouth you shouldn't say. And I'm reminded of one of the great people that said, I'm a bear of little brain. Winnie the Pooh. You know, if you're a person of little brain, that means you could feed yourself on the word of Yahweh and say what he says and do what he does. Because if you don't think about your thoughts, you think about his thoughts, and you say the end from the beginning, and you speak not the problem but the solution. And when you see it from that point of view, then when things like construction, like yesterday, I'm like, okay, the E train's going over the F line, and this, so there's, and that's okay. I'm gonna have to walk an extra couple of blocks. But then when you look at it through his eyes, well, just a couple extra blocks, I'll get there in time, no problem, you know. And I said, well, I'll take the 60 back, and so that because of my mindset changed, and I spoke the positive, not the negative. When I was coming to church today, even though the E train was going over the F line, you know, I said, you know, I was able to get here the same amount of time, just get off at West 4th Street, take the C. It was right there. So instead of it ruining me or saying, oh, here they go again with this train construction, here it goes again with you know, the seats being occupied, you know, by homeless people and different things like that. You know, I was able to look through his eyes and see the way he sees and speak what he says and speak his word. You know, and knowing that the end from the beginning, that he does everything in his word. His word doesn't return to his void, but it does accomplish everything that we please and prosper thing which he sent it. You know, and I can go out with joy and live forth with peace. If I'm going nowhere, I'm gonna end up somewhere. You know, and while I was out on my vacay, I was able to go through my goals and write them down for, you know, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to accomplish. And as you was saying about the piano, you know, I'm doing the violin, you know, and, you know, I'm also looking for like senior citizen housing, but, you know, not senior citizen housing, stay there, but, you know, in order to pay less, but also, you know, to find something that's good for me so I can go to work and come home again, you know, and pay less, you know. And when you look into that also, you have to have the right mindset too. You can't look at the place of lack. You have to look at place of abundance, because if you look at it, you know, a lot of them start $7,000, $3,000 a month. But, you know, he owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. The earth is yours and all its fullness. So I thank him, because, I already got a savings of $500 in the bank. Well, actually $600 in the bank. So I'm going towards my goal of 2,000 of savings in the bank. So there's nothing impossible with him. It's just we have to change our mind around and think his thoughts and not our thoughts. When we look at the lack, then we don't see, we see it's impossible. But we look at the abundance, we see he can do it. And there's nothing impossible for him. So, I just want to thank it. Now, while I was up there, too, I was looking at short houses for Pastor Annie, because I remember that's the desire of her heart, too. So that's, like Pastor Dan, you have to pray for others, what their desire is. I saw some cool ones, I thought she would like, But, I thank Yahweh that he gives us a mind to, his thoughts so that we could create our world in his language, not our language, because our thoughts, we could go this way and that way, but if we speak his word, then anything can be accomplished. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. And actually, just to mention one thing that Leroy was talking about, people are looking. I remember when I was a supervisor with Delta and I had transfers, and so we had a shack where we dispatch all of our agents from. So I would go in and I would walk around the operation, and then I walked into the shack, and then there was a $20 bill that was on the floor. So I went over and I picked it up and I said, whose $20 is this? Did someone drop? Because this is my mindset. Whose $20 is this? Somebody dropped this? And everybody started laughing, right? And I said, what are you guys laughing at? They said, you know what we've been doing all day? We've been leaving it down there, and we've been watching when people come in, and they've been like sliding it under their foot, and no one's looking. They go down. Now imagine if I'm a supervisor, and they all knew I was a Christian, and I walk in like, woo, and I slide it into my pocket. They were like, hey, you busted, right? But you never know. This is why your mindset has to be, this is who I am. And I saw that. I'm like, God, take care of me. I said, did someone lose this right away? And everybody kind of saw that my character was very consistent with what came out of my mouth. So we got to be very careful, like Pastor Andy said, when you cut corners, even when nobody's looking, that's when you really want to be who you want to be, because when nobody's looking, that's who you really are. Amen. And what I wanted to do is also share along the lines similar to what Kim was talking about. And I said it was a very busy week for me because I think back in January, and I mentioned the last time I was ministering, I was thinking about moving on to another position, start doing some interviewing. But the things that came my way was age, because I'm 59. I'm like, okay, now most people say, oh, well, I'm ready to retire. And yeah, I'm thinking about moving on to the next step in my career. And then I was looking at my skills. I was saying, well, I've been improving my skills, but I'm not really where I need to be to go out, because I'm looking to do a six-figure income. And then I didn't have a degree. I wasn't comfortable with my job and starting over, and all these things were rushing through my head. So my friend, her name was Maxine, she knew me from back in, because she left Delta and went to the Port Authority, and she had given me a call and said, Larry, I know you were working on something, and I want to come over and take a look at it because we're trying to do it here at the port. So I said, come on over. I didn't mind helping her out. And long and short of it, she went through, she saw everything I was doing, pulling data from our data warehouse, and she was like, that's exactly what we need. She said, how long are you going to be here at Delta? She said, why don't you go ahead and put in, because we're going to be opening up a spot, why don't you put in your resume? And I was okay. And then we started talking. I was like, yeah, well, I'm looking to make about 110,000. And she said, you don't have a degree, they'll probably pay you 125. I was like, whoa, I was like, okay. And here I am thinking my skills aren't worth it. I'm all this. But she said, hey, we'll give you 125. So then I went ahead and I put in my application, and sure enough, I got the interview. And then I went on the interview. So now my next thing is, okay, I'm going to interview. I haven't interviewed since 2006 when I first came to Delta, and now I'm thinking about all that. But I went out and I got these videos that talked about how you position your skills with what they're looking for and everything. So I went ahead and I did that. And then I went in and I had the interview, and lo and behold, I had fun. I mean, I really enjoyed myself. I was like, wow, what was I so afraid of this is fun. And so I had a good time. And then my friend, just recently, this is the last, I think it was on Friday or something like that, she gave me a call, and she had told me, she said, Larry, I was disappointed. And she said, you didn't get it. You actually came in second, right? And so my family, everybody thought, but I was encouraged, okay, because I knew where I was at. I didn't even think I was worth what I was making, but yeah, she's telling me that I'm worth it. And come to find out, as we were talking, out of the hundreds of resumes, they selected 30 people to take the resume. Now, I remember last time I put in for it, I didn't have a master's. They were looking for that. I didn't even get a call. But this time, they said they were going to select 6 people to interview, and I was one of the 6 people that they selected to interview. And then my friend, she knew what I could do. Her boss, because she couldn't interview me, so she had her boss interview me with another gentleman. I had fun with him. She was a real stiff person. She said she's tough, but we had a great time. We were laughing, joking. So what she told me, she said, Larry, I fought so hard because I knew what I wanted to do, and I know you and I could do it. And she said my supervisor, she had somebody else, and then she was fighting for it, and they were back and forth to the point that they had to go to the director and say, here's the 2 people, which one do you want to hire? And he looked at a piece of paper and he saw masters. So this guy had a master's in data analysis, and I had experience, right? So he went with the masters. I was all right with that. I'm saying I didn't think I was able to get out there back into the workforce, to here I am competing with a guy with his masters, and I had to go to the director to break the tie. So all that Yahweh told me is there are a few things that you have to go back and do. So now I'm putting a plan in place, because the type of statistics I know is called descriptive statistics, which means you talk about what happened. And then you have these other things called regression testing, and also inferential statistics, which talks about trends and analysis going forward. And that's where I'm going. That's why I'm going back to the math and learning about that. There's a couple online courses in data analysis. So all it encouraged me is I just got to take a step back and then retool my skills and then get a few credentials on this. So when I go back again, then I'm ready to walk through that door. But my whole thing is, when one door closes, another door opens. I trust that Yahweh said that if my gift is going to make room for me, my gift is going to make room for me. And I'm not going to be as scared and afraid about all these thoughts. And that's where a lot of this whole teaching came out of, was whenever we're in a position to do things that we don't feel comfortable, that's often when we're confronted with our fears, our doubt, and unbelief. And I started saying, Yahweh, how do I go about really reckoning with this? And these are the things he started giving me about how to focus on him and not on yourself. And so I was really excited about that. And though it was funny, because like I told my family, and everybody was like, oh. I'm like, I'm excited, And then when I told them I was going to go back and maybe get my degree or whatever, then all of a sudden everybody started, we had like a group text with the family. Oh yeah, Larry probably already read the books. He's going to probably go in there and teach the teacher. And I was like, yeah, funny enough, I've already started reading a few books. But see, that's my whole mindset. Now I'm so encouraged to go back. And that's the same thing with you, Kim, is just going back with a different mindset. And what I do is I always go back a little. If I don't understand this, then I'll go back another phase and then I get to the place where I understand something, and then I'll start working for it from there, because it just might be little things that you miss that is making it hard to understand that. So I'm encouraged. I just go back and do it over again. I think Pedro wanted to come up and say something.
Yes. It's interesting that this is about goal setting, because if we change the goal setting, or mindset, if we change it to paradigm, the word paradigm, it's also, we're always fighting our old paradigm to get into the new one. And this is funny, because this week I was studying, I was getting back into writing. Pastor Dan a long time ago said, practice writing the Hebrew letters. And I had restarted getting into that. And a word came to me, said, I remember Pastor Dan said that in Genesis 1, that the earth was tohu vabohu, right? And that means in English it says without form and void. So I was curious, and that Yahweh said Ur Haya. And I found out that Ur Haya, even though it is translated to light, the real definition of Ur is order. So Yahweh puts things, when you say tohu babohu, is chaos. So when he said udhaya, he put things in order. So that was that was what was interesting. So I was trying to, and I haven't found it yet. I was the other time when I'm remembering when Pastor Dan said that we said in John where it says light, life, and love. So I was just curious because I was trying to find the Hebrew word for life, and I haven't quite found it yet. But what if it's ahava, the order, and life, whatever life means in Hebrew. So I was that's my curious about that. So that's my thought.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Though we are our small group, very lively and got some good stuff. And I don't think things. Oh, you want to come back up here? Okay. Okay, come on up. And of course, this is not going to be done until Gloria comes up here. So I'm just letting you know. I'm giving you the warning.
Yeah. I forgot about this one thing. While I was up there at the shore, I was only supposed to stay till Thursday. And then I said, I want to stay one more day, but I got to be to work Friday. So, I said I could call and say I'm sick and then take Friday off. But no, what I did was I called one of my managers and said, well, I'm not going to be able to get back at a certain time. Is it, can you take me off the schedule Friday? And he said, well, I don't know, but he said, because it's you, I knew I had a favor, I'll do it for you. So, Thursday came and I didn't see no change in the schedule. And then, it's Thursday morning. I said, okay, I'm going to have to call, because I'm there already paid for the next day. But then Thursday night came and then it was changed. So he took me off the schedule. Also, in that same respect, I saw the schedule that I had for the next week, and we have a store meeting. And, I said, well, I just, if I was only there for 1 hour. I said, I didn't want to be there for 1 hour because I'm paying money to come into the city. Just to be there for 1 hour didn't make no sense. And then Saturday, I had me scheduled for 7:30, which my first bus doesn't leave till 6. So, I'll leave it alone. But then yesterday when I got to work, I spoke to my manager and I said, well, can I stay for a little longer? Because it doesn't make no sense for me to just come in for the hour. And so they got me staying till 11. I said, and I spoke to them about Saturday too. And I said, well, can I come in an hour later? Because my first person. So I got favor and I came an hour later. So, but you have not, because you ask not, and you ask and miss. But, if I just said, oh, I'm just going to do it, stay where I just going to deal with it, But, you have to know that you have to speak out your mouth. That's like being a doer of the word, not a hearer only. So I just wanted to share that's also, Yahweh's blessings, because know that you have your favor on your life, but you have to speak it out your mouth in order to have that favor. Yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Larry said it wouldn't end until I speak. Do you think I like to hear myself? Well, in conjunction with what you taught this morning, it was really, really very interesting because I write books. And I never thought that I would want to teach somebody how to write. So at first I had somebody who was coaching me, but it was in a different mindset. Not the mindset that I know the Lord wants me to think. Because sometimes somebody wants to plant into you. It's good, but at the same time, you want to do or say or what Yahweh wants you to do. So I said, I want a website, but I don't know. I want somebody, I want help with a website. And when I think of website, I think about money and all these different sections. And, when you look at a website, you see home, this place, blog, this. I says, let me just forget about it. A friend came along and he said, I will build you a website. He said, I'm going to build it to you, and then after a year you can take it over. I'll say, okay, I'll do that. They build a website. But the thing is that they were not as fast in building it as I wanted it built. So they kept being slow. And every time I look at it, I said, no, I don't like this. No. You know, somebody's doing something for you and you can't criticize it because it's a favor they're doing. So every time they said, do you like it? I said, well, yes, I like it. But I'll send you a text on what, you can do for me. I say, do you know that you're doing something for a woman, and a woman's perspective of things is different from a man? So bear with me with that. Your colors are different from the way I would want to color it. But then I sat down and I said, Lord, I want to send a message through this website. Because he was just putting the website together, So then one day I found that he was taking long. And I said, let me go in there and see, because he gave me permission to go in. Let me go in there and see if I could mess with this thing. And at the first, I couldn't understand what he was doing, but somehow or the other, I lay down in the night and I said, Lord, I want to be able to go back in there and make some changes and then let him follow me from that point. I went back into the website and I can see what he was doing. And I began to interfere with everything. And then eventually I said to him, I said, it's finished. He says, I said, do you like how it looks now? He said, yes, I like how it looks. I said, well, I think I like it the way it is, so we don't have to bother with it anymore. And I went back in there and made a whole new website. Kim looked at the website and I did the website. Now from that website, I am going to be teaching people how to write fiction stories. And but I'm not, later on, it's going to be a place where you're going to I'm going to charge you, but not now. I'm offering a lot of things for free, like how to begin it, how to brainstorm, and all these different things, just to give you an idea. And then afterwards, then the rest of it will be, you got to pay for it, because time is very expensive, So when you talk about setting goals, that was a goal set that I had for a very long time, but I didn't have it the way it is now. It has pulled a lot out of me, and it reminded me of when Pastor Dan started the praise and worship team, and he opened it to other people, and I went there, and I said, I want to sing with the praise and worship team, and I started singing with the praise and worship team, but they had professional players up there. They had people there, and I said, well, I'm listening to the one who's singing alto, and her voice is so beautiful. I'm listening to the one in the tenor, and her voice is so good. And I am doing. I was what? I was an alto. I was not. What is the next one? Not soprano. No. The low one. No, not the bass. Tenor. I was the only female in the tenor with the guys. So I said, you know what? I am going to get somebody to train me so that I can get my voice to sing like their voice. And I went and I got this guy. This guy was a professional. I didn't even know. Right now he's in Hollywood because he does a lot of things up in there. And he taught me, he says, you can do it, Gloria. He says, you listen to yourself. You can do it. And he kept after me, I can do it, I can do it. And I would take the songs that we were doing here, and I would take it to him, and he would say, sing it, sing it, sing it. When I came back here, I was singing with the group. And I say, you just have to be persistent, because there are a lot of things in us that God has put in us that if you don't search it, you wouldn't find it.
Thank you, Gloria. Oh, that was a real blessing, real blessing. So I don't know, Karen want to say anything? Or okay, she got her head down. So I think we kind of went through everything, and I think we had a nice, lively time. But one of the things that reminds me of is the one thing where it says is God's delight to hide a thing, but it's a king's to search it out. And then he also showed me where he said that your gift make room for you and brings you before great men. But what he said is, see, you're the king. King of Kings, Lord of Lords. If you don't search it out, you're not going to find it. See, reason why Gloria found that talent, because she pushed herself to search for it. And then even with that, he said that your gift will make room for you. But guess what? If you don't develop that gift, it's not going to make room for you. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that Yahweh can't drop a gift on you and open up great doors. But most times, you got to work at that gift. Because my son actually had a phrase where his coach used to tell him, he said, work will always beat out talent when talent doesn't work. So when you got talent and you don't work, somebody who works hard is going to come along and eat your lunch. Talent, he said, work will always beat out talent when talent doesn't work. So when we get this idea that all of a sudden because God gave us a gift, these doors are going to fling wide open, no, he's tell you develop your gift and take care of the door opening to me. So that's kind of where my mindset was at, and I appreciate everybody what they shared, because I think we were all blessed from it. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and take up my Deeper Life offering as we wrap up, and it's almost 1:30, so I think we did a pretty good time. Yes, thank you very much, Leroy. I appreciate. There's a bucket right there. Take the bottom one. Take this the bottom one. Leroy's always used to serving in other areas. We got to help him along here. Okay, yeah. I got it. Okay, I think we're good, yeah. Yahweh, we just thank you and praise you for this fellowship. We thank you for each and every individual here. We thank you for adding your faith, our faith to yours, and just putting us in a position, Father, where we can be victorious. We thank you that each and every individual here has done the best they could in this offering. And we know that when there's meat in this house, we know that you're going to bless them abundantly and pour out a blessing so numerous that they won't have room to receive it. I thank you that self-limiting thoughts and unbelief will no longer be in our heart, Father God, but we will hide your word in our heart that we might not sin against you. We thank you that we guard our heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the very issues of life. And we just thank you so much for your word. We thank you for your love, for your love overcomes everything, Father. And we just give you all the glory and all the praises in the precious name of your dear Son, Yeshua. We say amen and amen. And thank you very much, all, and you are dismissed.
Sure, I take it mic to the back.
Just take it back there.
Yeah, I'll put it on there.